An elderly man in Louisiana had owned a large farm for several years. He had a large pond in the back. It was properly shaped for swimming, so he fixed it up nice with picnic tables, horseshoe courts, and some apple and peach trees. One evening, the old farmer decided to go down to the pond, as he hadn't been there for a while, and look it over. He grabbed a 5-gallon bucket to bring back some fruit. As he approached the pond, he heard voices screaming and laughing with glee. As he came closer, he saw it was a bunch of young women skinny dipping in his pond. He made the women aware of his presence, and they all went to the deep end. One of the women shouted to him, "We're not coming out until you leave?" The old man frowned. "I didn't come down here to watch you ladies swim naked or make you get out of the pond naked." Holding the bucket up, he said, "I'm here to feed the alligator." All the girls ran out of the water naked, and the old man just watched. She went to the airport and sat down, waiting for her flight. She looked over in the corner and saw one of those weight machines that tells your fortune. So, she thought to herself, "I'll give it a try, just to see what it tells me." She went over to the machine and put her nickel in, and out came a card that said, "You're a nun. You weigh 128 pounds, and you are going to Chicago, Illinois." She sat back down and thought about it. She told herself, it probably tells everyone the same thing, but decided to try it again. She put her nickel in, and out came a card that read, "You're a nun. You weigh 128 pounds. You're going to Chicago, Illinois, and you are going to play a fiddle." The nun said to herself, "I know that's wrong. I have never played a musical instrument a day in my life." She sat back down. From out of nowhere, a cowboy came over and set his fiddle case down next to her. The nun picked up the fiddle and started playing beautiful music. Startled, she looked back at the machine and said, "This is incredible. I've got to try it again." Back to the machine she went, put her nickel in, and another card came out. It said, "You're a nun. You weigh 128 pounds. You're going to Chicago, Illinois, and you're going to break wind." Now the nun knew the machine was wrong. "I've never broken wind in public in my whole life." Just then, she tripped, fell off the scales, and broke wind. Stunned, she sat back down and looked at the machine. She said to herself, "This is truly unbelievable. I've got to try it one more time." She went back to the machine, put her nickel in, and collected the card. It said, "You're a nun. You weigh 128 pounds. You have fiddled and furted around and missed your flight to Chicago." One day, I accidentally overturned my golf cart. Elizabeth, a very attractive and keen golfer who lived in a villa on the golf course, heard the noise and called out, "Are you okay? What's your name?" "I'm Phil, and I'm okay, thanks," I replied. "Phil, forget your troubles. Come to my villa, rest a while, and I'll help you get the cart up later." "That's mighty nice of you," I answered, "but I don't think my wife would like it." "Oh, come on," Elizabeth insisted. She was very pretty, very and persuasive, and I was weak. "Well, okay," I finally agreed, and added, "But my wife won't like it." After a few restorative drinks and some creative putting lessons, I thanked my hostess. "I feel a lot better now, but I know my wife is going to be really upset." "Don't be silly," Elizabeth said with a smile. "She won't know anything. By the way, where is she?" "Under the cart," I said. A young man walks into a supermarket and buys a bar of soap, a toothbrush, toothpaste, a loaf of bread, a container of milk, 2 boxes of cereal, and a frozen dinner. The girl at the cash register looks at him and says, "Single, huh?" The man replies very sarcastically. "How did you guess?" She replies, "Because you're ugly." A Swedish truck driver once got stuck in a tunnel in Norway. Soon a Norwegian came by the tunnel and found out that the truck was wedged in with the load stuck against the ceiling. The Norwegian suggested that the Swede let the air out of the tires. The Swede looked angrily at him. "You moron! The truck is stuck up on top." In a dark and hazy room, peering into a crystal ball, the mystic delivered the grave news. "There's no easy way to tell you this, so I'll just be blunt. Prepare yourself to be a widow. Your husband will die a violent and horrible death this year." Visibly shaken, Laura stared at the woman's lined face, then at the single flickering candle, then down at her hands. She took a few deep breaths to compose herself and to stop her mind from racing. She simply had to know. She met the fortune teller's gaze, steadied her voice, and asked, "Will I be acquitted?" In a physics class, the teacher was busy explaining a complex lesson when her pencil slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. She bent down to pick it up, then straightened herself and continued teaching. Little Johnny, sitting in the back, raised his hand with a mischievous grin. "Teacher," he called out, "this time there's going to be a new boy in your house." The teacher, puzzled and slightly amused, asked, "And how would you know that, Johnny?" Johnny leaned forward with a sly smile and said, "Well, teacher, from the little tear in your pants, I could see his mustache." There was this world-famous painter in the prime of her career. She started losing her eyesight. Fearful that she might lose her life as a painter, she went to see the best eye surgeon in the world. After several weeks of delicate surgery and therapy, her eyesight was restored. The painter was so grateful that she decided to show her gratitude by repainting the doctor's office. Part of her work included painting a gigantic eye on one wall. When she had finished her work, she held a press conference to unveil her latest work of art, the doctor's office. During the press conference, one reporter noticed the eye on the wall and asked the doctor, "What was your first reaction upon seeing your newly painted office, especially that large eye on the wall?" To this, the eye doctor responded, "I said to myself, thank heavens I'm not a proctologist." An old man who loves to fish was sitting in his boat the other day when he heard a voice say, "Pick me up." He looked around and couldn't see anyone. He thought he was dreaming when he heard the voice say again, "Pick me up." He looked in the water, and there, floating on the top, was a frog. The man said, "Are you talking to me?" The frog said, "Yes, I'm talking to you. Pick me up, then. Kiss me, and I'll turn into the most beautiful woman you have ever seen. I'll then give you more sexual pleasure than you ever could have dreamed of." The man looked at the frog for a short time, reached over, picked it up carefully, and placed it in his front pocket. Then the frog said, "What, are you nuts?" "Didn't you hear what I said? I said kiss me, and I will give you love pleasures like you have never had." He opened his pocket, looked at the frog, and said, "Nah, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog." Two men were having an awfully slow round of golf because the two ladies in front of them managed to get into every sand trap, lake, and rough on the course. They didn't bother to wave the men on through, which is proper golf etiquette. After 2 hours of waiting and waiting, one man said, "I think I'll walk up there and ask those gals to let us play through." He walked out the fairway, got halfway to the ladies, stopped, turned around, and came back, explaining, "I can't do it. One of those women is my wife and the other's my mistress. Maybe you'd better go talk to them." The second man walked toward the ladies, got halfway there, and, just as his partner had done, stopped, turned around, and walked back and said, "Small world." A small plane was carrying 3 passengers over a mountain range: an old man, his grandson, and an eminent scientist. Suddenly, the pilot burst into the cabin saying, "The engines have all failed! Grab a parachute and jump from the plane!" With this, the pilot opened the cabin door and leapt out with his parachute. To their dismay, the 3 passengers discovered only 2 parachutes were left in the cabin. The eminent scientist took a pack, saying, "I'm sorry, you two, but I won a Nobel Prize. I am the head of several intellectual think tanks. Honestly, I'm worth more to society than either of you." The eminent scientist leapt from the plane. The old man turned to his grandson and said, "My dear boy, take the last parachute. I've had a good life. Yours has just begun." "Don't worry, Grandpa," said the young boy. "That guy just jumped out the plane with my backpack."